Okay, so I just wanted to talk about some stuff that I've been thinking about with the Atlas this league and how they've changed a lot of the league mechanics. Um, it's just going to be me rambling with no real structure or anything, just thinking about what they've done and what they maybe could do in the future. This is probably one of my favorite leagues of all time. I think the only one that I maybe liked better was Trial of the Ancestors. Um, but we'll see. It's not over yet, obviously, and I've had a really good time in this league. I dropped a Squire. I've never dropped one before, so that was cool. But anyway, I'm just gonna go through the Atlas, and I have a lot of thoughts on the character tree changes and the item changes and the removal of like certain things on the skill tree, stuff like that. But I don't want to talk about it in this video because I'd be sitting here for like maybe 5 hours. So I just want to talk about the league mechanics, especially because most of these mechanics are going to be in Path of Exile 2. We know that already, kind of from what they've been saying. We don't know exactly which ones are going to make it over, especially at the start, but we do know they're bringing some stuff back, so I think it's an interesting thing to look at based on like the new game coming out, right? So the first thing is I want to talk about is the first league mechanic I ever really interacted with when I started playing the game. Um, is Bestiary. So Bestiary is really weird this league. Um, I like some of the changes, but some of them are really weird in concept, but could potentially be good if they do some fixes to it. So Great Migration was removed from the Atlas, and it was replaced with Deadly Prey. And in my experience, I ran probably about 70 maps with this. It's not very good. The beasts already have if I remember correctly, and this is still the same, the beasts already have a bonus to drop quantity and rarity baked into them as it is. Um, but re-killing them over and over and the delay that it takes for this to recast or for the beast to like break out takes a really long time. And the rarity bonus on and rarity and quantity bonus only applies to beasts, which is not the best in the world. Um, it doesn't feel very good to farm it. Honestly, if this was in the game with Great Migration, um, if both of these were still in the game, then it would be a lot better. Um, because right now, Einhar for this node is kind of worthless. So usually, if you spec Bestiary, you only take these two. Um, which is it's going to be a common theme with some stuff, new stuff on the Atlas that you don't take the notable. It's something I think they dropped the ball on a little bit, but yeah. And then the other thing is Einhar's beast catalog was moved around. Some of the beasts from his memories were moved into regular maps. Um, I don't remember if Wild Bristle Matrons are available in regular maps anymore. I still think they're memory exclusive. Um, I haven't run as much Einhar as I usually do, so I haven't done as much research into his drop table as I have in the past. Maybe I'll do that later in the league and frog farm a little bit, or they try to get the frogs. But yeah, this node is kind of a waste, and um, he didn't really receive anything to make up for it. This is also not a very good node in my experience because people tend to not look for this modifier when you're selling beasts to people. I think it's really good for SSF. I like that this node exists, but I think it's an SSF only node. Um, because in my experience, from the few beasts that I have sold this league, people don't really seem to notice if this modifier is on them or not. I guess PoE players, just the meme is always they can't read, so maybe that's it. I don't know. Um, I think Great Migration and the other the other one that used to that's a lot of yellow beasts were replaced with reds. I think those two notables being removed is really bad for Einhar. It makes frog farming a lot harder, and especially with his more diluted beast pool, it makes getting the frog just really difficult. Now, I want to talk about the things that they did really well with Einhar. Black Morgan being brought in from Affliction League and put in his bestiary pool is very cool. It has some really neat crafting recipes that make bestiary way stronger than it used to be. Um, and it's a really huge jackpot to get one. And I do like that they're trying to shift Einhar to being a good mechanic to run in higher tier maps, because before you never ran Einhar above the minimum tier for the frog to spawn, which I think was 5 before. So you would run the maps with no mods on them, and usually, and you would go for frogs at tier 5 maps, and it was super easy. Any build could do it, but you didn't get rewarded for doing Einhar high tier maps. You actually got punished for it. So I like that they're doing that. I also think this, now that Great Migration is removed, this node needs to be reworked, because the main reason you took this was not because of the damage that he did, but because he could throw his nets faster. And because there were so many beasts on the screen with the Red Beast replacement node and the Great Migration node, Einhar would need to throw his net a lot. So this would speed up your mapping speed by a lot because he would chunk the net faster. Well, this is still in the game, so which one do they remove from up here? I don't remember. I think... Oh, the duplicate beast node. I think that was beasts appear in pairs. I think is what they changed. So that one's still bad anyway, that it's gone. I think what they need to do, because this is a really interesting concept, but it changes the way the mechanic works so much that this should be a keystone. Like one of the big ones. This should be a keystone, and they should bring back the Great Migration and Beast Pair nodes so that you can actually take advantage of this. Because this is a really interesting idea. And I also think that every time that you capture the beast, like even if it breaks out, it drops stuff on the ground. So every time that Einhar throws the net, if it breaks out, it still drops what it was going to drop anyway. And then it drops again, and then it drops again. And this might seem really broken. However, you got to think about how long it takes Einhar to throw the net for it to break out and do the breakout animation or whatever it is, because it takes a while. And then the beasts have a bazillion HP, especially if the map is juiced, which you're going to do with this strat if you were going to do this. So it's really time consuming, but I think this is a good idea. They just need to make it a keystone and bring back the old Einhar nodes to pair with it, and then make it to where the beast will drop stuff every time they die. But that's my thoughts on Einhar. I haven't played him as much this league, so let's see, what else did they change? Heist, I never really interacted with that much. I've heard they made the rewards for Heist more standardized, which makes contract selling, I guess, a little harder. I'm not super familiar with Heist, though. I don't like to talk about it as much if I don't know that much. But I did hear that the rewards kind of got the betrayal treatment, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The other thing is... Let's see. What did they change a whole lot? Blight. Let's talk about Blight. So Blight's my favorite mechanic in the game. And I've run Blight a pretty good amount. Not last league, but the 2 leagues before that. I ran Blight a lot. This node is very cool. It will give you Carpal Tunnel if you do not have the Caster Mastery to open nearby boxes. But it does give you a lot of stuff. It can give you Scarabs. It can give you gold, which is awesome. It's generally better than the stuff they had here before. This one's still, I think, the same. This node right here is a problem. So, blights in maps, especially, are known for their absolutely terrible pathing, unless you run every single one of them on Toxic Sewer or Carcass. So, and even then, sometimes it can be crazy. Like on Vault, I've had it where it spawns no towers and the boss portal is right next to the pump and they just kill it immediately. The old node that this replaced was the oil extractor node, which was one of the most fun parts of Blight to me. Because if you looked at the table for what oils were in anointed gear that would drop from this node, or one of the other nodes, I can't remember, it was on the same one, but it's not in the game anymore. Oil extractors, you could get. It was always fun to like see if you would get like a golden oil or silver out of some trash anointed amulet that would drop from Blight, and see if you made a lot of money on it. It was just kind of goofy. This node provides almost no benefit whatsoever. It's really hard to do unless your build has literally tens of millions of DPS. It's really hard to do it, and you can get RNG screwed out of a blight from the layout of the blight pretty much immediately if you take this. It's a huge trap. I never took it while I was farming blight. After I tried it, like I unspec'd it like 3 or 4 times, seeing if I could get enough damage to do it. The rewards are also really trash. That's something that they've needed to fix about blight for a long time. Potentially, you could combine it with the scarab node that's down here to get more scarabs, which is something I did try, but it doesn't seem to be too lucrative for how difficult it makes them and how often you can reach a fail state. And I'm playing the super OP um, Summon Holy Relic Necro build right now, and even then sometimes I don't kill them fast enough depending on what the mods are. So I never take this. And I haven't farmed Blight as much this league, but I did on League Start to sell to a friend Blighted maps. Blight Reach. This is a little weird. So it feels like this almost never procs, and the I can't remember what node this replaced, or if this was in last league because I didn't play much last league. But I know it was something else before that was a little different, and I think it was Blighted Maps Chance, but the buff is new, so this buff to me almost never procs. Like I've even farmed a bunch of maps. I set up a cartography scarab setup for this. It still wasn't worth it. If they're gonna make this a chance, it probably needs to be like 50% or higher, maybe like 60 or 70, because I have not seen a whole lot of them, and this is a lot of Atlas points to go for. These 4 are obviously really good. I mean, you would probably take this just for the blighted maps in the chest. I just don't think that the Blight Reach buff is doing what they think it's going to do. You would still take this just to farm blighted maps, but from the chests from the blight. But I don't see this being useful for the buff itself and going for cartography. And then this is the same as it's been. I think the double open might be new. I don't remember if this is new or not. You always take this. It's whatever. This really didn't change. This one was reworked to, I believe it was before. I want to say it was the towers did more damage, but now it's just they take more damage overall. Or no, it might have been towers do more damage, but this is better because it buffs the player. Cassius Pride is still whatever. I guess if your build is really horrible, you can take this. Blight already wasn't hard though if you had the Chilling Tower Anoint. And towers already do a ridiculous amount of damage anyway. So I mean, it wasn't really that big of a deal to take this in maps. Now, if this helped in actual blighted maps, but that would be really good. But it doesn't apply outside of them because, or on those because they're outside of the atlas. So like just blighted maps don't apply your atlas to them. So it's not good. I would really like if they would rework this into something else. But I also think this down here, salvaged rewards are improved for each different tower type built during the encounter. I wish they would apply this to all of Blight. I wish they would apply this node to the blighted maps, because this is something that's been needed for a long time. The tower meta has been stale in Blight for a long time. You can do Blight with no gear on except your rings, because everyone just spams chilling towers. The occasional, was it Shockwave tower, like the stun one, and then you just do meteor towers or scout towers based on what your other anoint is. So like this is really cool because it encourages you to build other tower types. I don't know how much the rewards are improved by, but it did seem to be pretty significant when I played. So I like that they did this. Let's see. Strongboxes really didn't change. These nodes were actually, I think, made a little better. No, I think they're the same. I don't think they changed this. Strongboxes are just overpowered as usual. They really didn't change much. Now, the new scarabs for them are crazy. Which I probably should have talked... Actually, I'll go back to Blight and talk about the scarab. I haven't used Einhard's scarabs that much, so I'm not going to talk about his. His basically just replaced the old sextants anyway, from what I've looked at. So there's not really anything different with him. Blight scarabs... Blight Reach scarabs are horrible. They actually make the mechanic worse. So... This scarab's very good. This one is the one that is the meme. So, what this scarab does is it picks one chest at random for the entire Blight encounter. And it makes that chest get completely huge. And then it gets a gigantic boost to quantity and rarity. However, it can pick a completely useless chest. And anybody that has ever farmed Blight knows that the main source of profit that you get from Blight is from the oil. And the consistent profit that you get from Blight is from oil. And this usually makes the Blight drop no oil. And that is a absolutely horrible design flaw, I think, of this mechanic they have introduced. And the quantity and rarity boost, while extremely large, is pretty much never enough to make up for losing the items you get out of multiple different Blight chests, right? Like the stacked deck one is really important for Blight. Stacked decks and oil is the main source of profit for Blight, because we need to feed everyone's gambling addiction. There's the two new oils, which are, or I think it's one new oil, because I think it's just prismatic. But the new prismatic oils are really cool. The new hidden anoints are really neat. They added that this league. It's really cool. I haven't seen the prismatic oil drop, and I ran like 100 Blight maps. So, but my friend dropped like, I think 8 of them in 20. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just really unlucky. But this scarab, I want to say I ran a full stack of them, so like 20. It's never worth it. I basically lost money on doing this strat. I didn't realize what it was going to do, but I ended up using all of them just so I would use them all. These are just the ones that I've picked up since. And this scarab is just completely worthless, and it needs to be reworked. It absolutely needs to be reworked. It needs to always drop oil. Even if it doesn't pick the oil chest, it needs to always drop the oil. Because it also goes against the design tenet of Blight, that you're always going to get the blighted items. Even Delirium, right here. This is a keystone too, so you know it's going to be way different. Um, the main concept behind Delirium is not the actual Delirium rewards themselves. Of course, they're very good too, but the fact that you introduce so much pack size into your map through the mechanic, and that's usually how Delirium is scaled. This allows you to scale Delirium that way, at the cost of losing those items. But Blight has never had an alternate scaling vector like this. So Blight really struggles when you have the Blightreach Scarab. I don't know what they could do about it. Um, I mean, I'm not really sure. Maybe add the Ichor Pump rewards to the Blighted chest. If that isn't already how it works, I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I couldn't tell, and the rewards were just horrible anyway. So this Scarab needs to be removed and reworked or something. It needs a lot of work done to it. And I forgot what this Scarab does. Because I don't think I've seen any drop, and I haven't really farmed Blight as much as I usually do. I can't remember what this one is. But this one's crazy. I really like this Scarab. It's good for farming blighted maps. It's very good for solo self-found. I haven't played SSF this league, but I've been thinking about it. I might. I don't know. But that Scarab comes in. That's going to come in really handy. Harvest, as far as I know, didn't get really changed that much. I don't think they changed any of the notables for Harvest. I think the Scarabs might have gotten changed. Harvest is still Harvest, though. I want to say I've heard there's a new strat with crop rotation with the Scarabs. I've never liked crop rotation, though, so I don't take it. But, yeah, the duping Scarab is still in. Guaranteeing the 4 seed. I think this is the new Scarab. I mean, that's really good. Harvest pretty much is the same. Let's look at Beyond. What do they change with Beyond? This node I've never seen anybody take. I think this one's new. I don't remember seeing this before, but in every strat I've seen, nobody takes this. I wish it said what the power was you got after you defeat the boss. But the thing is, in most Beyond strats, you don't fight the boss. So, I don't know. These nodes are pretty good, though. I think they've been in the game, though. So, I mean, there's not nearly any change. The layout of the nodes has changed, though. This giant Beyond cluster here is a little weird in pathing on the Atlas tree, but the sheer availability of Beyond as a mechanic with the new Scarabs has made Tainted Currency, I think, really cheap this league. So Beyond. This Scarab here, like I said, I don't know if they introduced this in Necropolis or not. I think this is new. This one is crazy, and it's basically required for every Beyond strat. Because you're going to spawn so many Beyond portals. This essentially guarantees that you will get a Beyond summon every time you kill a rare unique monster. So it's extremely good to run this. This is one of the best Scarabs. I used this a lot when I was farming before. And it's only 1 chaos. So, really good. Let's see. So, Alva, this is really interesting to me. Because the duping Scarab for Alva is... Oh. A little strange. You don't run this scarab until the temple is ready to drop. Um, like until you have like a tier 3 room, one of the tier 3 rooms that you need. You can make a lot of money with this though. It is a little bit of RNG. The main thing about Alva that I don't like this league is these two new scarabs don't do anything for incursion. These are juicing scarabs for just regular maps. They need to be. I mean, this one's okay. It does look. It puts the monsters in the incursion, but it's still like a juicing scarab. It doesn't affect the incursion mechanic in any way. So basically, Alva only has two scarabs, and they did not fix the problem that she's had before, where these other incursion nodes are completely useless, and the only one that's good is this one. Like, this is the only one that's really usable. I mean, you can take time dilation if you're struggling with the time limit, but considering incursions are usually run in low tier maps, you're not getting a whole lot out of this. And the 33% chance for all monsters to be magic is nice because it's good for leveling. And, I mean, they get a little bit more gold drops. But other than that, I heard Alva still struggles from the same problem on the Atlas tree that these nodes are bad. This one has a lot of debate around it. I think it's good. But this one is pretty much always horrible. This thing goes intangible all the time. It wanders around. It never drops any good currency. I don't think it's weighted very well for higher level stuff, even though it takes forever to kill it. It's just really annoying and obnoxious. So Alva probably needs to have two of her scarabs reworked and then have this reworked. And honestly, the temple, I haven't been satisfied with how it works in a while because it's always been that you need. It's pretty much always been that you need the Locus of Corruption or Doriani's Institute, and nothing else matters. So I actually think Incursion got even worse this league in terms of its design. So that one's I think that one they messed up pretty bad. The Scarab nodes on the Atlas tree are really cool. I like that you can target farm Scarabs, and I think one of the biggest changes they made this league is that the blocking nodes now make it to where you can cull certain Scarab drops from the loot table. That's extremely strong. These nodes suddenly went from being kind of horrible to being some of the best nodes in the game because of Scarab farming strategies. And you can target farm specific Scarabs that sell for a lot on market. Particularly ambush Scarabs, which are right here. So you can take out every other Scarab type. I think Delhi Scarabs might still be worth something. I'm not really sure on Scarab prices right now because I haven't farmed Scarabs specifically since probably like a week ago. But ambush Scarabs are always going to be like the most expensive ones. They're super good. This one's really cool. This can be good if you're doing destructive play. And I really like this one because you can combine it with Ruckus to get a bunch of Rogue Exiles and drop tons of Scarabs. This one's also pretty cool. Scarabs in general got a lot of really interesting farming strats now that Sextants are gone, so they're the only way of juicing. So I like the new Scarab nodes on the Atlas tree. I think they're really cool. So Ritual got a lot of changes. This is probably the most changed mechanic. This is probably a bigger change than even the league mechanic that's currently active being added to the game. Ritual was pretty much considered a meme before, and they didn't change pretty much anything, I don't think, on the Atlas tree for it. What they did is they took most of the Affliction League mechanics and wrapped them into Ritual. So you can get the King of the Mist invitation to do his boss fight from Ritual. The Wild Wisps can appear in the Ritual, and Wildwood bosses can appear in the Ritual circles. which is crazy juice. They really hype up the rituals. Ritual rewards were improved this league. Now they have a chance to contain the unique corpses for Raised Spectre, some of which are extremely valuable, like Perfect Hydra and Perfect Warrior, or the Tiger. And Ritual is finally a mechanic that has interesting rewards. Because the main thing about Ritual before was that it was a jackpot mechanic where half the time you would get nothing, and then maybe you would get something kind of valuable, and then on those rare occasions you would hit big and you would get something that's worth like 10 or 20 div. Because it was like a synthesis crafting base or something that's super valuable. Ritual is still that, but it has more consistency to it now. And I want to say the way that mobs are counted as native to the map too makes Ritual a good secondary mechanic. It's always been this, but I think it's better now because it can spawn unique monsters. As a secondary juicing mechanic where you don't even do the ritual and you just pass by it and kill everything that it spawned, which is really cool. It's good that ritual is so versatile now. I think it's probably one of the best changes they did this entire league. I think ritual is in such a good spot now. Maybe there's some other stuff they can do to it. I think deferring items is still kind of weird. I think deferring is still a little strange of a mechanic. And I think the keystones are kind of odd. I don't ever know if there's any reason to take these. But I'm not an expert on ritual, but from what I have ran of the mechanic this league, it seems really strong, and it's really fun because it's still got that jackpot factor. But occasionally you can get more consistent profit out of it, and you can also get some interesting, unique rewards that you can't get anywhere else. Which was also already true of Ritual, which was for like unique bases like Archdemon Crown and the Trap Gloves, or whatever. I think they're ones that there's a glove type that affects trap throwing or something. Just interesting bases that you can't get anywhere else. And I'm really a fan of Ritual this league. I'm not farming it actively right now, but I did for a while, and it's really fun. It didn't get. I don't think it even got any changes in the Atlas tree. I think they're all just to the base mechanic. I have not seen this happen. I've taken Sacrificial Dew, but I don't know if I've ever seen it drop a blood-filled vessel. Maybe I have and I just forgot. I ran a bunch of rituals, but I don't know if I ever saw this proc. It doesn't seem like it's 15% though. It seems more like 1 or 5. So, Abyss. Abyss got nerfed. It had a problem where multiple projectiles on the map and the map effect were scaling those multi-projectiles to summon more rare mobs. Abyss has really fallen out of favor with a lot of people this league. I haven't seen a whole lot of content creators suggest it. I've ran it myself a little bit. It just doesn't seem like it's a shadow of its former self, even for leveling. This is still good, but like having to chase the breacher, having to chase the abyss around, having to spec all of these points into this, and only getting a small chance for some of this, and then the rewards. This is basically what you're fishing for with this. I wish they would bump this up to 50 because this is the main product that, other than Stygian Vices and Darkness Enthroned, that Abyss creates. And I think that it would be a little more interesting if this chance was slightly higher. But I think even as the leveling mechanic, Abyss has fallen out of favor. And I think it's only because of nerfs to quantity and some stuff I'll talk about with gold later that has really made Abyss not as great as it used to be in this league. I think the drops are nerfed enough from the quantity and removal and the gold existing on the drop table to replace standard items. I think has really hurt Abyss. This mechanic was already teetering on the edge of being not very good, and then they nerfed the Stygian Spire strat and the um, overall drops in the game. And it does also Abyss doesn't pair well with a lot of other mechanics. About the only one that it can do well with is Beyond, and there are a million mechanics in the game that do well with Beyond. So this mechanic is in a kind of a bad spot right now. I'm not saying that you can't run Abyss and make a lot of money, but I just don't see much reason to do Abyss over another mechanic with all of the changes around the game. Delve is still Delve. Nico got some new Scarabs, I think, this league. He got this one, which is cool, but it's just a juicing Scarab, so it's whatever. I mean, if you really like Delve, that's good. I think it's an interesting one. So, Expedition really didn't get changed. It's the same. It does feel like logbook drops are lower, but that could just be my bias. I've actually dropped more logbooks without this spec than I have with it on. I do think Gwenin is even worse than she used to be, though, now that Faustus has the black market. I think Gwenin was already really bad, and Gwen is now even worse. Gwen and Rog less so, but Gwenin especially got really nerfed by Faustus existing. Because black market to acquire item bases is so much easier. Gwenin, really the only thing that she has left is trying to fish for uniques, which is she was already kind of bad at to begin with. And you basically just never want to see Gwenin. She just nerfs, I mean, even more so than before, because she was already really bad. And I do think it's funny that she's always been kind of a meme in terms of effectiveness since she originally got nerfed way back when. But she doesn't do anything in King's March when all the other three got really valuable effects. I wish they would throw Gwen in a bone because I think she's a cool character, but her her effect is so bad. Gambling's just not a good mechanic anymore, and it doesn't really give you anything that's valuable. It's just a giant nerf to Expedition. You end up just skipping expeditions that are led by Gwenin most of the time. So I do think though if they were to give her something that would allow her to compete with the others, um, I'm trying to think of what it would be. Maybe that her logbooks have like more variable value, like they're more gambly than the other three. Like if you do her logbook runs, then the rarity and difficulty of the map is more random. That could be a new thing that they could add to Gwenin, but I don't know if that's too much to add to the mechanic to make it more complicated. Even though I don't think Expedition's that confusing. So the main thing they changed on the Atlas was the removal of the Uber nodes. Um, and I guess this is a good moment to talk about T17s. I don't like that they exist. I think that they're harder than the Ubers they give content access to. And they are generally too much of a difficulty spike from T16s. I think a lot of their modifiers are stuff that I've always praised PoE for not adding into the game, but then they added a lot of those modifiers into the game. They're just randomly annoying on your maps. But like basically, there's some of them that just prevent you from standing still, even if there's nothing on the screen. Sometimes, um, which is really odd. It's really annoying. T17s take forever to run half the time. You have to. It forces you into playing builds that have no weaknesses, um, which is really obnoxious for build diversity. Um, Build diversity might be some of the worst in the game right now because of high end content like this. Because T16s were already ridiculously difficult for most builds to do, and they've basically shoehorned people into playing builds that are extremely min maxed and have very few modifier weaknesses, even after they removed some of the more bricky mods. I think the idea of having these challenge maps is fine. I just don't think you should be able to use any kind of fragments on them. And I don't think that you should get your Atlas tree applied to them. Now, I think there should be like a gap between T16 and Valdo's challenge maps, more so than what they are right now. Because it is cool that you can test your build on content that's that hard, but you shouldn't be encouraged to farm it because it's not normal difficulty for the game. If that makes sense, because it's really limiting on build diversity, which builds were already there's a lot of builds that are shoved out of being playable because of the way that T17s are and their role in the meta. And I've run a bunch of T17s. It's really cool to see all that loot drop, but it's basically the old T16 levels of loot. So it's not really something that I hope sticks around. I would like to see them remove them next league, or rework them to where they're not mandatory farming content like they are right now. Because it just doesn't feel good. T16's already had a lot of bricky mods on them for a lot of builds, and I've seen a lot of builds just not be able to run them. So, let's talk about Betrayal. Betrayal, I farmed a lot. It numbed my brain, but I did farm it quite a bit. Veil Orbs. So what they did to Betrayal, I don't know the specifics, but what they did is a lot of the unique bonuses you got for getting people into specific safe houses were removed or made more standard. Instead of wild stuff like Aisling dropping Veil Orbs or Vorici giving you white sockets. That stuff really isn't in the game anymore. I think they removed all of that kind of stuff. The only thing I think is still good is Gravitius and Transport because you can get full stacks of div cards. But every other thing about like getting people in specific safe houses is no longer in the game anymore. Which kind of defeats the purpose of the mechanic, and Veil Orb drops were moved to Katarina. Because before the strat was you would never do Cat, and you would stick Aisling in research and then just spam her for Veil Orb drops. And Veil Orbs were not super expensive back then because of that. I think, how much were they like in Tota and Crucible? Like 40 Chaos? Now Veil Orbs are 11 Divines. This is such a nerf to crafting that it's kind of miserable. Because Veil Orbs were one of the easiest ways to craft in-game items. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be, that crafting really in-game stuff shouldn't be hard, but it was already kind of a gamble, but it's made crafting stuff, the level of money that you need to craft really good items is way too high now because of that. Maybe because crafting is way too centered around Veil Orbs, maybe Veil Orbs themselves need a rework. But yeah, all in all, Betrayal is a much more simple mechanic now, and you just kind of spam it until you kill Katarina, which is annoying because she has so many invuln phases where you can't even hurt her. So she's just standing there tanking damage while you wait for her to become vulnerable again, or try to like trigger her next phase as fast as possible to where she just will go into the next set of her attacks. Um, I think I killed Katarina about 40 or 50 times, and I got um, 11 Velorbs, I think. So she's in a she. It should be good to run Katarina, but it shouldn't be good to have so much weighted into her and not the rest of the mechanic. You really don't care about the rest of Betrayal anymore, unless you're doing the Gravitius strat, which, if you are, that's fun. I mean, it's really gambly and you could make no money, but it is kind of crazy to sometimes see him give you a full Mage Blood. But because his cards are weighted to the rare end of the scale. This one, so for Nico, he got a couple new things, but I haven't tried this. Most of it's the same. I mean, Mining Byproducts is still in the game. This is still in the game. If you really like Delve, I like Delve. I mean, it's cool. Um, I think I talked about Nico Scarabs already. Legion is super bad this league. I don't know why Legion is feels so much worse. Maybe because it is slowly fallen out of favor even in the last couple leagues. But now Legion is so bad that no one wants to run it. There's some specific rewards from Legion that are good to get, but those are also so hard to obtain, like timeless jewels, that a lot of people just choose not to farm it because it's so time consuming. Um, there's also a lot of this has always been the problem with Legion, but a lot of builds just can't farm it very well. The monsters are too spaced out for most explosion builds to hit all of them, and a lot of the times the Legion is so big, the monsters go into their invulnerable zone where they can't be off screened as easily, because there's like a radius off the screen that if your projectiles go a certain distance farther than that, then they can't be hit. So about I want to say it used to be about 2 screens. Maybe it's like a screen and a half, something like that. It just makes Legion really hard to farm for anything that's not a projectile build or a minion build. So yeah, Legion's not in a great spot. Five way, five-way Legion stones are still a really good way to level, but that's about it. Like they really did not get much, and they've never fixed it to where the leaders, like the commanders, actually are worth doing because they've never really fixed that. The generals are so tanky and they drop nothing. This isn't a new problem. It's an old problem that they've refused to fix. And I don't know why they refuse to fix it. Um, it's really bad though, and I really wish that Legion would get something more unique to it to give it a reason to be target farmed more than it is. It's still okay in solo self found, especially if you want to get the unique rewards from it that are there. But trying to play a build also that needs stuff from Legion in SSF is just torture anyway, so I don't know why you would want to. I mean, if you really do, then go ahead. But I wouldn't do it. This mechanic needs some love. And I want to say the Scarabs aren't very good for it, too. Yeah, you would never take this because having a general is bad. 5 sergeants is okay. And I don't remember what the last one does. I had one, but I think I sold it. But like no one is running Legion right now. It's so dead. Now we have Breach. So Breach is really popular this league, mostly because there is a challenge to sell all of the Breach rings to get a grasping mail. Now Breach is very good for leveling. It was I think Breach right now with Domination Scarabs is one of the most favored leveling strats to the point where I think the Scarabs got so expensive I didn't want to do it anymore. Um, I do need to do a leveling strat so that I don't have random deaths because I do super juice content and I occasionally die, and the death penalties at 98 and 99 are so insane that I just don't level up. Um, but I need to probably buckle down and do that. But Breach Chayula is super valuable right now. Um, Not just because of the unique drops, but because you want to farm the feared. You got to do this. Chayula Breachstones sell for a lot. The boss duplication node is really crazy. Breach on the Atlas really didn't get changed, but the Breach Scarabs did. Um, Breach. So areas in each breaches in each area contain a Breach Lord. This is I'm also convinced is kind of bugged because I have seen some when I use this scarab not spawn one. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does occasionally, and it's really annoying when you use this. However, the scarab is really good, even with the bug. So, Breach Lords have a chance to drop a full Breachstone. If it is Chayula, she is immediately dropped, I think, like 1.3 div. If she decides to drop her Breachstone, which is really, really, really good. Let me look up the other Breach Scarabs because right now there are some really good ones. So, Resonant Cascade Breach Scarab is, I think, pretty expensive, but I've used this Scarab and it's extremely cool. You get so many Breach Splinters by using this. Um, Breach Scarab of Snares, you have 5 to 10 extra clasped hands, and they're guarded by a rare Breach monster. You're getting more rares in the map. Now, Breach does have as far as I remember, does have a rarity and quantity penalty because of how many monsters it spawns. However, it's still worth it, and they also have a chance to drop more splinters. You can get the Scarab Splinter, or the Splinter Scarab, which is going to drop a lot more scarabs. I mean, not scarabs, splinters. So you get a Breach Stone within like a couple maps usually, or maybe even 2 maps. I've gotten one where it's like you do one map and you get a full Breach Stone for one of the Breach Lords, which is completely insane. Like not one dropping as a whole, but like enough splinters in one map. If you juice this really hard. Now I still think Breach is really bad in SSF because most of its rewards are trade based. So you probably shouldn't farm Breach in SSF unless you've got like some other specific thing you're having it interact with. It's still good with Beyond. If you want to burn your graphics card to the ground, you can combine it with Beyond and Delirium, and you'll have so much stuff on the screen that you can't even see anything. That's not uncommon, I guess, in this game, but it really is the case with Breach, especially since you should always be taking the node on the Atlas that increases the Breach monster density. I did farm Breach for a really long time this league, and I mean, it's always fun to just blow up a bunch of mobs. Now, the only problem with Breach is that it is so good right now. It's come back into favor so hard that it's basically killed Abyss. Unless you're farming specifically for Cluster Jewels. Or, I mean, not Cluster Jewels, Abyss Jewels. So, yeah, it's whatever. And Harbinger. So, Harbinger got giga buffed this league indirectly because of the gold thing, which I probably should have talked about first, the gold problem. But because of the gold issue, Harbinger, because it has set rewards, is even better than it used to be. And it has some of the best scarabs in the game. The new Harby scarabs are completely insane. This is going to make almost everything a boss. You duping the scarab. I mean, you're duping the currency shards. And this one I think is overlooked. They spawn, I think, 2 obelisks per Harby. So you're getting more currency shards. Like, it's more chances to get mirror shards. And this scarab's only like 1C compared to the others. I think this one might be 2. Maybe it's 1 now. But these are, I think, are more expensive. But Harbinger, combined with
Beyond is one of the best farming strats right now because they will always give you that loot. They have a chance to give you mirror shards, and they spawn a ton of Beyond monsters. They're also good for power leveling because Harbingers are very weak. They're not very strong. Like, they've never been very strong. They kind of just fall over and die. Um, so they're a really good farming strat still for low tier maps. They're one of the few ones that didn't get bumped up to like tier sixes at minimum, like Essences did, which I'll talk about in a minute. Because there's some stuff because I didn't play much in Necropolis League, but I want to say some stuff about the Essence changes, and there's even more in this league. But first, this is still one of the best mechanics for low tier maps because Harbingers will always drop their loot. Um, so since I mentioned it, I'm going to go over this stuff with King's March. I should have done it at the beginning of the video, but so how gold works is item drops in your maps are replaced with gold based on the tiers of the modifiers the item would have had on it. This is obviously really bad because what ends up happening is those item drops that could have been something really amazing end up being transferred into gold, which means we have basically a net quantity negative or like a quantity multiplier negative this league for regular items. Now, you can use that gold through King's March to get a bunch of other stuff, but it does make ground-based loot strategies much worse this league. More so than they've ever been. Almost to the levels of Calandra. So, this is obviously a big problem. And I think if King's March goes core, what I would like to see is, because I really like King's March, I think it's really cool. And I think gold being able to be used for respecs for new players is awesome because they don't have to collect regret orbs or be worried about running out of their reset points they get through the campaign. I think that's really awesome and it's something that should have been in the game for a long time. However, I think gold's effect on in-game juicing has been extremely negative. I think that loot tile based strategies are so comically strong in this league that it makes it hard to justify running a strat that focuses on ground loot. Um, so what I would like to see next league, if King's March goes core, which I'm assuming it will because everybody seems to like it a lot, and I think they would be crazy not to rework parts of it and make it core, is when it gets its Atlas nodes, which this tree, we need to get more Atlas points anyway. And this tree kind of probably needs to be reworked and expanded a little bit. I would like to see King's March get a keystone that causes you to not drop gold anymore, and you go back to the old loot table where you don't have gold replacement drops, and then you can just juice to the moon and get a ton of drops. And maybe make it to where there's some more efficient strategies for gold farming if you decide to focus on King's March. But King's March also is probably going to get nerfed in terms of how much divines it brings in per hour. Because King's March is extremely overpowered. You get a lot of really good stuff from it. I would like to see an opt-in for the gold. Probably down here. Maybe put the keystone like... maybe like right here. Somewhere very early on the Atlas. Kirak I'm also not too happy with, but I think these changes were in Necropolis. I didn't interact with Kirak in that league. I only played until I think I got maybe to red maps and then stopped playing in Necropolis because I wasn't really a big fan of it. But Kirak doesn't give you the one mission per day anymore. You don't get the master missions anymore. And he's still really good for filling out your Atlas, which I did this league. I did use him. However, if you do not take these nodes, it is extremely rare for you to get a Kirak mission at all. Which before, if you were a slower player, you would get one mission a day. and that was enough for a lot of people to help fill out their atlas, because it also resets Kirak's store his excuse me, his store inventory, which is super good for, you can buy all the maps that you don't have from him and just run them all and get most of your atlas points that way, and it's really strong. But I wish they would go back to having Kirak be more of a casual gamer assistance tool instead of what he is now, which is blast on day one, which, I mean, he did help with before anyway, but he's pretty much only relegated to that role at this point. So I really wish that Kirak would get some changes. And I think these nodes right here should be moved more towards the center. I think having a path way down here is kind of stupid. And I also think we need more room on the Atlas anyway, so like consolidating a lot of Kirak's nodes would probably be pretty nice. Ultimatum, I don't have too much to say about. It really didn't change a whole lot. I know there's some new scarabs for it, but I never really farmed Ultimatum that much. As usual, Ultimatum, the main reward that you're going to get from it is Mythic Orb bait. If you're going to get a Mythic Orb and slam it on a double corrupted item, you can get some really crazy stuff. That requires a lot of game knowledge. I'm not very good at this game, so I don't like doing it. And Ultimatum also requires ridiculously tanky builds. My build's pretty tanky, but it's not a Giga AFK tank build like Righteous Fire. So, or like the Pathfinder build that's going around with the Ray Specters. Like, I'm not that tanky. I can do Ultimatum, but I prefer not to. I think it's still a decent mechanic. I just don't have a build that's really good at running it, so I just haven't interacted with it that much. I've heard that it got stealth nerfed a week into the league, which I'm always against stealth nerfs. They need to just say when they do stuff. But it probably needed it because I heard it was printing hundreds of divines. So that's good on them for catching that. I just wish they would be a little bit more clear in communication. So, essences are the big losers of the last two leagues. So, most people that are new to the game, including myself, although I never used it for this purpose, I did make a lot of money with it, farmed their first Mage Blood by farming essences in white tier maps. Essences are still extremely valuable for the crafting process on most items. They're still one of the best ways to craft in-game items. They're super easy to understand for new players. They're easy to understand for old players. They're really deadly, and they tend to kill you a lot, but that's part of the fun. That part is still definitely true. However, this node is overkill, and it makes the map bosses extremely unkillable. It seems like the map boss modifier with the essence modifiers is so multiplicative that it makes the map bosses so unbelievably tanky and dangerous. And the second thing on this is a nerf outside of SSF. So in Trade League, as far as I know, unless somebody has discovered some gigabrain strat, you would never take this, because the Remnants of Corruption duplicating the essences prevents you from getting the high tier special essences that are very valuable, and that is really bad. It makes it nerfs this mechanic more probably than the Blight Reach does for Blight, which I wouldn't think would be possible, but it is. Now in SSF, this is good because you can farm specific essences faster, which I think it's good that SSF has specific keystones. However, this keystone was, before it was the duplication, the essence duplication node, which was really fun because you could use the tech where you would duplicate beasts with it. And it was just generally really fun to fight more monsters that were super unkillable. But essences were also reworked to require you to be in at least yellow maps, I think, to spawn the higher tier essences, which ruined the strat for a lot of new players. And it's really hard to not do essences without both having the scarabs for it to juice the essences up to their maximum tier, which wasn't really required before. And you have to be able to run them in yellow maps, which is super dangerous for a lot of builds early on in the league, and it's a lot slower. It's way slower. Excuse me. So I think that that was obviously bad. This one's the same as it used to be. This one was the one that changed. And this one was moved. I believe it was over here somewhere before. But essences are also kind of a shadow of their former selves on Trade League as well. For just being devalued. Recombinators existing has really nerfed essence values. I haven't used the Recombinator very much this league. That's my bad. I probably should have, because I just didn't feel like it, and I just did what felt familiar. Stupid mistake. I should have spammed the Recombinator and gotten some crazy items out of it. But essences are really cheap right now. Remnant of Corruption is more expensive, I think, than almost every Deafening essence, except for the unique ones, or like the special essences. So Remnant of Corruption being way more expensive than it probably should be is a little bit of a weird sign to me. Even Contempts aren't really that expensive. Maybe that's changed. I haven't looked at the market for it in a little bit, but it's really odd with how low essence prices are, even for Deafenings. You need basically twice the stack size that you needed before to sell them for a divine. They're really devalued right now, and I don't know if I can recommend farming them unless you're really like going for those special essences and not just like selling all the ones you get. Because before, I mean, being able to run them in white maps alongside Einhar and like June and potentially Nico or Blight, if you really felt like it, you could get some really good currency out of white maps. That is no longer the case with not Beastier. Where is it? Essences. I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this mechanic. I do think it was really overpowered in white maps to be able to farm that much currency through this. Because I remember in Affliction League, me and a friend got ridiculously rich doing essence strats over just a couple days. I think it was either Affliction or Toda. I can't remember. I want to say it was. I think it was Affliction, because I think I did the Flame Blast Spell Totem build that I came up with in that league. And I'm pretty sure that was when I did essence farming the most. But yeah, they're a little undervalued on the market right now, so I don't think it's worth really doing it. I'm trying to think of anything else to say. I think this is crazy. This is probably one of the most insane things they've added. Chiseled Perfection is combined with all of the other stuff. I mean, you could get a lot of map modifier effect before, but this right here and this right here combined make super juiced maps just way too hard, in my opinion. I think that it's a lot of trouble now to roll maps unless you're very specific builds, like Holy Relic, of course, which is why I'm playing it partially. is because of this. But I think that a lot of other builds are struggling with it, and I have some other builds. I have um, a Gladiator, I have a Pathfinder. Um, One is Lightning Spire Trap, and the other one is um, Lacerate. And those builds, I have to be very careful about taking specific modifiers on them because if I do, I can brick maps really easily. If I take off this modifier effect on here, so this Keystone's horrible. Wildwood Wisps. Let's talk about Wildwood since I forgot about it. So Sentinel and Wildwood do not appear on the Atlas traditionally. They brought them back this league. Sentinel is a gutted version of it, or it's not a gutted, but what do you call it? It's a super stripped down version of the old Sentinel mechanic. You just pick up the Sentinel in the map. It has a preset loadout. It'll buff the monsters up like it used to. A lot of times it just doesn't last as long as it did in actual Sentinel League. I dropped a Squire using this thing on an Essence, not this, but like a Sentinel. I had a Sentinel buff a Essence with a unique drop rate buff, and it dropped a Squire. That was crazy. Every time I've seen Sentinels work, they seem to be really cool. I wish they were on the Atlas, and I wish that we could still customize them. Maybe that's too much, but I think it's neat they're in the game. The Wildwood, on the other hand, the Wildwood is such a shadow of its former self. Oop. It was super nerfed per Affliction League. We kind of assumed it would be. It takes a really long time to do it when it appears in a map. It takes forever. It's random whether you even get a good layout with enough wisps. And then those whiffs make the game really hard, but then because their drop rate bonuses were their drop rate bonuses were nerfed, they're no longer it's no longer worth it ever to do it. And this I did on an invitation farm strat for a little bit. It did not give me any good results at all, and it took the monsters way longer to die. The bosses had so much health. It was crazy. I just chose not to take it anymore. This Wildwood Wisps just need to be buffed. Presumably back up to their old levels because they take longer and they're just annoying to deal with. And this is just also like not very good. Twist of Fate's still around. I've seen some really funny strategies with this now. People are really farming Vol Vessels this league. Or the Vol Temple maps for the Vessels this league because uniques that are corrupted give extra dust. Which means the trash uniques that you can't sell actually have a use. Which is really cool. I like that. I think that's fun. And the last thing I think I'm going to talk about, because my voice is dying, is Delhi. So Delhi is pretty much the same, except that because of T17 farming and the change to simulacrums, where you skip the first waves. I think it's like the first 10 waves they cut off. Never really liked doing simulacrum myself. I don't really like the mechanic that much. I think it's kind of boring. But simulacrum is really cheap right now because no one's running it. So, it's not super worth the farm for simulacrum splinters. Delhi orbs, because of the exchange, which I think is the exchange is a good thing. It's a good thing it exists. But I think it's one of the other reasons the essences are so cheap right now. Daily orbs, I've kind of found that they're really hard to sell in the exchange for what their value actually is. They should be sold for 20C each pretty much every time, unless it's one of the ones that's super high value. Maybe like 25C, I think, in bulk. But the
not the like special ones that people really want, like the divination one, obviously, or the stack deck one. I think is what it is. Um, but I was completely shocked at the devaluing of simulacrums. They are super super cheap right now, um, which actually means if you can run a simulacrum, you should be doing it. If you want to make a lot of money, because they're only like 19C per, I think. Where's Faustus? I'm
Oh.
lagging. Um, Simulacrum. Okay, so they're a little bit more on the exchange, but 31C for a sim is really cheap comparatively to how it was in previous leagues. Previous leagues, these would have gone for like 90 chaos, 100 chaos. I think at one point I was selling them for 110, just because they're obnoxious to farm. Which I also want to take a tangent to rant about Breach for a minute. Uh, we have automatically pick stuff that can pick up and be stored in non-inventory slots. Breach splinters need to be made to do that because and just dump a breach stone in your inventory once they're full, because picking up breach stones or breach splinters will give you carpal tunnel. There's so many on the ground. There's hundreds of them. You have to click on all of them. You have to run around and get them all. They're all over the place. They need to just auto pick up when you walk over them. They've done that with a lot of other stuff in the game at this point. There's no reason not to do it for breach splinters. Sim splinters usually will drop in a whole like pile, so they're really not as big of a problem. But simulacra or breach splinters have that issue, and they really just should have a place on your where you can auto pick them up. But anyway, they're just really bad for selling for simulacrums. But running simulacrums is extremely profitable, and if you can do it, you probably should. I don't have a simulacrum farmer built at this point. My Holy Relic character could probably do it, but it's extremely rippy, and I have a pretty good chance of bricking because simulacrum just does that much damage, and it hits really hard. My build's not perfect. I'm working on it. I need to farm a lot of money and get some more items, but um, I haven't built my build really to be tanky. It just does a lot of damage. It's more of a boss killer. And Sims require you to be absolutely unkillable. So, um, if you can do simulacrums, you should be running them right now if you think they're fun. They're only 17 per, so you can, or not 17, but 31 per. They kind of go between like, depending on the time of day, about 20 chaos to 30, 35 in there from what I've noticed. They're really cheap. You should just buy a bunch of them because it's, for example, Cirrus Conquer maps right now are 25. So Sims are about the same price. With a simulacrum, you're going to be getting a lot more valuable loot probably than that, in my experience, and from what I've seen other people do with Sims this league. And the prep time for simulacrums is really easy. You just go and you trade for them, and boom, they're in your inventory, and you can farm them. So, yeah, that's what I think of Delirium this league. So, Deli orb farming good, Simulacrum farming for selling the Sims bad, Simulacrum running extremely good. It actually got buffed quite a bit. It's very good. Altars didn't really get changed; they worked the same. Let's talk about Ubers. So Ubers, because the keystones were removed, which I'm not a huge fan of, like I said. Farming the invitations for them in tier 17s, if your boss can kill the boss, or if your build can kill the boss, very lucrative. For the Uber fragments, and Ubers themselves are still really rewarding to do. but I really wish they were more accessible like they used to be, where you can just get the invitation, because it's also devalued invitations a little bit, which I need to talk about. This is actually the last thing I need to talk about because I forgot about it earlier. Is the rework to Maven invites, which is pretty huge. The being able to just go up here and take Perfect Storm or throw the Gauntlet, it really reduced the cost of invitations by a lot. Maven Writs this league are only like 130C about. They used to be like 1.5 div, 1.8 div, depending on the day. Um, Shaper fragments and Elder fragments. Well, not Elder fragments, but like Uber Shaper fragments, Uber Elder. You want to just fight Uber Shaper by himself, or you wanted to fight the Uber Elder. Those fragments are a lot cheaper than they used to be. They still have a pretty good price point, but they're still kind of cheap comparatively to what they were historically. And Incandescent and Screaming Invitations for the two Eldritch bosses is a lot worse. It fluctuates pretty heavily depending on the day for both of these. At one point, Searing Exarch was over 100 chaos. And now it goes back and forth between like 40 and like 130C. And Eater invitations basically are not that valuable at all. It's like 40 chaos usually because everyone runs Eater altars because you have a chance to get the Divine altar and the Exalted altar, which is just crazy jackpot. You just get a whole bunch of value out of it. So there's that. Now the final thing for real this time is what I want to talk about is the because I do this strat a lot. Bossing is one of my favorite strats for invitation farming and just selling that stuff. I get a lot of money doing it. Is Maven. So Maven now, she used to drop the invitations as an item, and the invitations for unique bosses or the pinnacle bosses and the guardians were very rare. They were super valuable drops that cost a lot of chaos. However, they were extremely frustrating. And it was really annoying to not be able to get the one you wanted to drop. Um, Even if you spec'd fully into Maven and you were doing all of it, you very rarely got them to drop. The Feared was extremely rare. If you wanted to farm the Feared, uh, good luck back then. It was annoying. You had to buy a bunch of Feared invitations. Now, whenever you kill all the bosses that are in a specific invitation, Kurak will receive that invitation, and you will not be able to remove it from his inventory. You can re-roll it, but you can only access it from Kurak. And that way he holds the invitation. You don't have to go farm one or buy one. You can just go do it. It's an amazing change. I love that they did this. It is really good. It makes farming Maven Writs. This is probably one of the other reasons why they're cheaper. However, this is worth it because you can now farm Maven Writs extremely quickly if you're doing stuff like Shaper Guardian farming or Elder Guardian farming or Cirrus Guardian farming. Uh, you'll just be able to completely stack up those invitations really fast and run them over and over again. Pretty much, if you're farming Maven, you almost never do the old regular map boss 10-way invitation that was super common back when that was the farm. You pretty much only do now the the unique bosses. Usually Shaper, because Shaper is all of these maps are linear. You can run to the end. I also like doing it on synthesis maps because synthesis maps are very linear. They're very short and they're very easy, and you can get a bunch of Maven splinters from doing their invitation for that. So usually I just ping pong in between that and Shaper, and I get a ton of currency doing that. It's really easy and brain dead, and if you want to do Elder, that's okay too. It's just you're gonna have to deal with random map layouts. Same with Cirrus. Cirrus is really valuable right now too, as usual. His maps really didn't degrade in price. I think there's still some stuff from him people really want.
even on normal mode. So without the Uber frags from T17s. So then I really love the new Maven change. I think it's really valuable, and I'm really glad they did it. I think that's about it. I'm not the best player in the world. I just had some thoughts on all of it. I think these nodes now actually have more value, or this one actually has more value. It's always existed, but I know a lot of people have been spamming Wellstream creation now, even in in-game setups, to farm ultimatum. I'm not very familiar with that strategy, but I always like to see when there's changes to something old or something newer or older or whatever rework, make something really interesting here. I mean, this one's always existed. I just wanted to say that. I think it's really neat that they came up with a new strat. I know this was bugged at the start of the league. I don't know if this was ever fixed. Maybe it was. Yeah, I think that's about it that I have to say. Unwavering Visions is really cool. I think really what this probably could have done is because of Scarabs being so valuable now. I think they probably should have given it 30 Atlas points because, like, I mean, you can't use sextants or anything, so it would be really hard to make a strategy around this. I think and you can't drop Scarabs. The main thing I think that makes this untakeable is the cannot drop Scarabs line because otherwise you can make some really interesting Scarab farms. I mean, other than that, it's just not really great. I did see a really funny RNG strat that was really goofy where you could do overloaded circuits and Twist of Fate to get a whole bunch of value out of a map. These nodes are more important than ever because they upgrade a map to a T16, which then has a chance to be upgraded to a T17 when it drops. So these are probably more valuable this league than they ever have been. Before they were kind of whatever, I think, in my opinion. Like I said, I think if they make changes to I think the changes to Einhar are very close to the right direction. I just think they're incomplete, and I really wish they would make this a keystone and change up some stuff. With that, I think beyond, I kind of wish it was more worth it to fight the bosses. Legion needs a lot of love. I think that's about it. I think Vol side areas also still need a lot of help. They're still kind of in a bad spot. Even with Adorned farming, they're just kind of. Eh. The Breach is in a really good spot now. Invitation farming's in a good spot. Scarabs are awesome. So that's about it.